Oops, I should share my screen. Can you all see my screen? All right, we're going to get started. This is our September office hour. As with everything we do in the department, we ground this in our Best for All strategy. And once again, today we will be working in the educator's realm. Our agenda for today is, and we're going to talk about the evaluation data preview that is open right now. We want to spend a few minutes talking about LEA contacts, and then talk about growth measures and growth and achievement measure selections for the 23-24 school year. And I'll share some resources and next steps with you. So we did open an evaluation data preview open last week, and will be open through the 15th. Each educator has to have all 3 evaluation component scores in TNCompass in order to generate an LOE. So they have to have an average observation score, an achievement measure score, and a growth measure score. So what we'd like for you to do during this evaluation period is to check for the missing scores and get those uploaded. To check for missing scores, the easiest way to do that is to use the evaluation scores by educator report from TNCompass. You can filter that. The first thing I would do is filter column W to remove PYEs. That'll just save you some time in having to go back and why does this person not have a score? We're asking that you upload the missing scores by September the 15th. I realize that the team timeline says October the 13th. You can read between the lines there, and we hope to have LOEs released before October the 13th, barring any unforeseen problems. I can't promise that. If you get your scores uploaded and we generate LOEs, then you won't have a lot of questions from teachers if they generate before the 13th of October. It will stop teachers from emailing you saying, why don't I have an LOE? Because you haven't uploaded some scores. So just trying to stay ahead of the game here. This is a screenshot of the evaluation scores by educator report. I just am showing you from column AI. Obviously, there are a lot of columns to the left. And this AI and AJ are the columns that have the achievement measure scores in them. So if a teacher has a score in either AI or AJ, then they're good. The override scores, sometimes when you upload them, they go into the override score as opposed to the achievement measure score. It's not a problem as long as there's a score in one of those columns. You can also see everybody's achievement measure category in AK. AL is the type of measure, the specifics about it, and then AM through AQ are the criteria that are there. What I notice when I look at this report is the very top line that I've highlighted in yellow is blank. That educator does not have any selections nor scores. So that means that educator never had an achievement measure type put in. Their achievement measure was not entered into TNCompass and the criteria was not entered. In order for this teacher to generate an LOE, you're going to have to figure out what the achievement measure selection was, if there was one made, get that in, and then add the scores. You do need to go and put in the criteria. Everything except for a TVAS score requires criteria. TVAS scores automatically load, so you don't have to fill in the criteria for those. Those automatically are 1 to 5. This is the next few columns of the report. AR and AS will show you the growth measures, the growth measure selection and the growth measure score. Most of these measures are going to be, they're all going to be a TVAS measure, and they're going to be a school-wide composite. Some people have an LEA composite. LEA composites are not automatically loading right now. I'm working on getting that taken care of with TNCompass. So if you have a teacher that was in multiple schools and chose an LEA composite, we're working on getting that to load for you. But you can see here, this group of teachers chose, their measure is early grades, numeracy, feeder, or custom. There are no scores that have populated for these teachers because these are custom feeder options. If they are custom or feeder, you have to upload that score. So for example, they chose a grade 3 measure. So I would assume that this is a K2 school that does not generate their own TVAS, and they would use the growth scores from the school where most of those children will attend 3rd grade. In order to find that score, you have to put that score in. So each district in the accountability application received a spreadsheet. You've probably all already seen it. You've got a district-wide growth spreadsheet, a school-wide growth spreadsheet, and then even one with your teachers on it. What you're going to need is the school-wide one. So you would go into that file. It's a spreadsheet. You'd go into that file, find the school for which these scores should come from, and then you would enter those. There'll be a numeracy score. You can see that some of these teachers chose literacy, some chose composite. The headings on that spreadsheet are very easy to follow, and you can find these scores. I just want to take a minute to explain this. You are not going to do anything with these. I just want to explain what these columns are. AU, AW, and BF are individual growth measure scores. AU is the single year score. So that is the single year TVAS score for the 22-23 school year. It's comprised of data from the 22-23 testing. AW is a multi-year score. The multi-year score can be up to 3 years. You can have 2021, 2021, 22, and 2022, 23. So you can have 3 years worth of scores there. If a teacher has only been teaching 2 years, that multi-year score will only have 2021, 22, and 22, 23 for that. Column BF, which is the last column in the spreadsheet, has the multi-year without 2021. And that simply is, they have removed the 2021 score from the composite. And you'll remember back in 2021, the 2021 scores can only be used if they benefit the teacher. But you will be able to see all of these scores. Your teachers will be able to see all of these scores on their records. Column BA is your portfolio score for teachers who are implementing a portfolio, and BE are the universal reading screener scores for teachers in districts who implemented the alternative growth measure universal reading screener. To upload the scores in TNCompass, you'll navigate to the administration tab. You go to the import wizard. From the import wizard, you select under the evaluation data, evaluation component scores. That will open up a new window for you, and you will select the 22-23 school year. Make sure you select the 22-23 school year. It will open when it pops up. It will say 23-24. So be sure you change that, or you'll upload your scores into the wrong year. Once that downloads, this will pop up. You won't see any district but your own. If you want to download this spreadsheet for your whole district, you would just click on your district here where I've highlighted in pink, Alcoa. If I selected that check mark, I would get all of the schools in the Alcoa school system. If you just want to download these by school, you may want to download them by school and have principals help you check them, whatever your method is. If you want to download it by school, you just select that one particular school, and then you click Generate the Template. It will download a template for you that looks like this. There are 2 tabs at the bottom. There's an Administrator tab. It opens to the Administrator tab when you download it, so you won't see very many people. You have to click on the Teacher tab to see your teachers. Again, check column A to make sure you're in the right academic year. You've got your district ID. You've got your teacher license numbers. This is a live file. It has data in it, so that's why it's covered. You've got your educator names, their type, if they're a teacher or if they're administrators in there. And then all of their growth scores will be, you will add those in columns H, I, or J you're not going to add anything in H. You're going to use I, and J would be where you'd put your custom feeder options. If J is grayed out, put your custom feeder options in in H, I'm sorry. If there are scores there, most of the growth scores are automatically loaded and it won't let you upload anything there. So we want to talk a few minutes about LEA contacts. We sent out an email about LEA contacts earlier in the week. We are collecting those in TNCompass this year. So what we're asking that you do is go in and check to make sure you have somebody for each of the 12 types. Districts, there are 3, charter schools, there are 3 that you do not have to have. It says for district only. You go to the administration tab, select LEA contacts. And then you'll see like the first line here in the contact box. You click there and it'll drop down. You'll have a drop down box. You select the type of contact you want to add. Enter the information. Make sure the email is correct. I know that some of you have had emails from why we're asking you to check this, and we know now that there are some incorrect emails for people because we get returned emails when we send out an email to evaluation configurators and others. We can't correct those. So we need you to make sure that your email, for example, I know one district, somebody left out off a G, off of org in the end of their email. So please check those. You can also, in the second example here, you may have a person that you're going to staff for more than one contact. You just click back in that box and add the rest of them. The drop-down list will come in again. You just keep clicking until you've got everything that person needs to have. Once you're finished, when you go in to look at that, it'll look similar to this. You can see here that in this example, there is one person that's staffed for educator licensure, human resources, differentiated pay, and educator diversity. You can see the evaluation configurator is also the tassel configurator. So this is a way to check that. You can just go in and look at that. Again, please check your email addresses. We cannot correct those for you. There is a problem in the system. If you are staffed twice, if you go to your staffing on your educator profile page and you go to the staffing for you, if you've got 2 staffings for 23, 24, it's not going to let you do this. So you need to have somebody remove one of your staffings. Chances are you probably don't need both, but if you do, you can remove one, get this filled out, and then be restaffed. If you have problems with that, email 10 questions and we can walk through that with you. So that's what we need to work on first for last year. So we're trying to wind up the 22-23 school year. And looking forward to 23-24, it's time to start thinking about growth measures and achievement measure selections. Sorry, can you hear me now? Growth measure selections. For every educator must have a growth measure selection in TNCompass. For most educators, this will be a school level TVAS composite. A custom feeder option is available for teachers in schools who do not generate their own measure, as we talked about earlier. Measures should align as closely as possible to what the educator teaches. And teachers that are staffed in multiple schools may choose a district measure. You also have the option for teachers that are staffed in multiple schools to set their master school. You set their master school, and that's the school their growth scores will come from. Resources for growth measures are on the team website under the growth measures tab. The 3 that I've highlighted at the bottom are probably the most useful for you this year. These are all specific to this year. This is the 23-24 growth measure selection guidance from that website. In the center here, this is where it's talking about the different types of growth measures. Individual TVAS, which will automatically load, individual student growth portfolio, and individual student universal reading screener scores automatically are loaded into TNCompass for a teacher. Then you have the school level TVASC options, district TVASC options, and custom feeder options. All teachers, regardless of if they are expected to get an individual score, must have a school or district level TVASC composite entered into TNCompass. That is a backup measure in case for some reason the measure they have selected, their individual selection does not generate. So for some reason, if the universal reading screener platform completely crashes and nobody can get scores from that, then their LOE would revert back to either their school level TVASC that was selected here. As a reminder, for 23-24, LOE calculations are 40% observation, 25% achievement, 35% growth. This is also true for 22-23. Administrators, their observation scores count for 50%, growth is 35, and achievement is 15, and non-tested teachers are 70, observation 15 growth and 15 achievement. So let's talk a little bit about achievement measure selections. Again, every teacher must have an achievement measure selection in TNCompass. The achievement measure options include state assessments, off-the-shelf assessments, TVASC composites, graduation rate, ACT or SAT assessments, early post-secondary exam, and industry certification. Measures should align as closely as possible to what the educator teaches, and achievement measure criteria must be set when the selection is made. The achievement measure worksheet and other resources can be found on the team website under the achievement measure tab. And the ones that I've highlighted are probably the most useful to you. The achievement measure worksheet is the one that contains all of the available achievement measures. Calculations, again, are here just for you in case you need to review those. I will say that our achievement measure worksheet looks a little different this year. It's all the same. It's just a formatting thing. They're not in a table. They're in a bulleted list this year. The CTE measures have changed some. The CTE measures have been changed to align with, there are 3 types of industry certifications or credentials that students can earn. They're in 3 categories: recognized, valued, and preferred. The valued and preferred are the ones that are on the achievement measure worksheet this year. Best practices for achievement measures are to have the building level administrators keep a copy of the achievement measure worksheet for each teacher. Some of you probably do not use paper copies. You may have, I've talked to a few people that have Google Docs and things like that. That's fine. Just be sure that you retain a copy of that so that at the end of the year, if there are any questions, you have that information. List the specifics of the achievement measure being selected. For example, if a teacher is using TCAP 3.8 success rate, be very specific about the grade and the level of the measure. Is it say it's 4th grade ELA and the teacher is choosing the school level measure or the grade level measure or the classroom level measure? Be very specific about that. That'll help you at the end, at this time of next year when you're entering these scores, to have as much information. You know, if it's an off-the-shelf measure, such as CASE, be very specific about how you're going to measure this. What score will be used? Is it the percentage of students scoring a certain percentage? Or is it the percentage of students that are projected to score this? Is it a change from the first test to the second test? Which test score are you going to do this? Figure out how you're going to do this on the front end and make sure everybody knows that. And make sure the score is easily calculated. If it's not, if it's something that's a little more complicated, write down your formula for calculating this, and this will save you time next year when you do this. The teacher chooses the measure. The district sets the scale. So you can set the scale. You don't have to do an individual scale for each individual teacher. If you're using a success rate, you can choose to set it at the scale based on the school success rate or the grade level, however you want to do it. If you choose to do an individual scale, that is, you absolutely have the ability to do that. But if you want to just do one scale for the entire school, you can also do that. Next steps for you. Share these resources with your building level administrators. Provide support to principals on measure selections, and get those measure selections into TNCompass. You technically, I believe, on our team website, on our team timeline, we have until December to do that. The sooner you get this done, the sooner you're through with it. Next month, we will have an office hour, and we would talk about finalizing, entering those final achievement measure scores and finalizing LOEs. And then we will take a break in November and December. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to email team questions, and we will get back to you.
Hey, Amy, we have quite a few questions today.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
I hope I have the answers.
And if, because some of them were put in, they're not specific. So if we don't answer your question, please, you may come off mute and clarify if we're not answering correctly.
And may I say one thing, please be real careful if we're asking very specific questions, that we are not identifying any teachers or anything specific like that, because we are still recording this.
I have two teachers who chose a system level growth score that did not populate in TNCompass. How do I get those scores to populate?
I'm working on getting TNCompass to get those populated now. They will show up. It just may take a little bit.
Laura Jones, did she answer your question about completing LEA contacts?
Well, I'm not sure. Is it because of we may be in there twice? Our names may be there for 2 times.
If you are staffed in one, if you have more than one staffing in TNCompass, if you're getting a red bar with an error message, that is the problem.
Okay, I'll go back and check that then. Thank you.
And you can, the easiest way to check that is to look at, if it's yours, look at your educator page, and there's a staffing at the end. Click on staffing and it'll show you staffing.
Okay.
What you're staffed as for 23-24.
Okay.
Since
Can I chime in on this question too?
Sure.
It was the same thing. So is it okay then to remove us and just have us as the appropriate one and add us right back? Or what is the guidance for what we should be for the year?
Yes, ma'am. That is what I'd suggest. Just removing one. You need to stay as evaluation configurator or superintendent designee.
Either one works.
Either one of those should work to add the contacts. And then if you need to add yourself back as a principal or whatever else you may need to add back, you can. But remember, in staffing in TNCompass, if you're a superintendent designee or an evaluation configurator, superintendent designee can do anything. The evaluation configurator can do quite a few things. So you may can add some extra permissions and just stay once.
Yeah, Amy, I was going to help Cassandra with that as well. It's unlikely that you need to be staffed in 2 different roles. If you need a permission in your role, you have a configure button that you can get access to something different. So there really shouldn't be a reason that you're staffed in your district twice.
Thank you, ladies.
You're very welcome.
Are there any other questions about the LEA contacts, since we're on that topic and accessing those?
I just want to say, just to be clear, because I've been working in the LEA contacts as well, Amy. When we say you don't need to be staffed twice, that's your staffing. You can be an LEA contact twice. As Amy said on the slide, there are some of you who have lots of roles and jobs. So you might be HR, you might be licensure, you might be evaluation configurator. So you can have all those contacts, because we need your contact. There's people who are not coming to our meetings for portfolio leads, nor this meeting, because we don't have your contact. So it's okay to have your contact be more than one person. It's just your staffing that only needs to be one. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay.
Mandy, I saw your Sorry.
This LEA contacts has not gone as smoothly as we had hoped. It will be better next year. This was our first time doing this. And this actually is going to allow you to change your contacts during the year if you need to. Without letting us know, you can go back in and change your contacts. If you decide to retire at Christmas and whoever's coming in to take your place, they can put their contact in and you will no longer hear from us.
Mandy, I saw your hand go up. Did you have a question?
I do. Sorry, I was on mute. In the past, it is only allowed for 2 superintendent configurators or designees, excuse me. Can you have more than that now?
Yes, I believe so.
Is it unlimited, Amy?
As far as I know.
Okay, thank
But
you, ma'am.
remember, Mandy, one thing to remember when you're staffing somebody superintendent designee, you are giving them access to everybody's everything. So think
Okay.
about your data and data protection, because if you make sure they actually need that kind of access, there's not another role that might be better. If you have any questions, we can talk about that later.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to move on to achievement scores. Since
Okay.
we don't have finalized TCAP accountability scores yet, how do we proceed with missing TCAP achievement scores? Same with official graduation rates.
Okay, you can wait on those. If you have them, you can use them. We don't require the official accountability file, the success rate from accountability. But if that's what your district chooses to use, that is fine. You just wait on those scores.
What about CTE?
CTE measures you will not have those. I don't believe those files are going to be finalized until sometime in October, after the CTE team gets those finalized numbers information. Then we send that to SAS to generate those scores. So it may be November before those scores are generated. I just don't know exactly when we'll get those files, but they will be automatically populated in TNCompass when we get them.
We asked if there's a tutorial video principals can use to guide their teachers to choose growth and achievement measures in TNCompass.
A tutorial?
Yes.
There is not, but that is something we can think about trying to do for you.
There are documents.
There are documents, yes.
There's lots of documents on the team website under the achievement tab and the growth tab that can explain to teachers exactly what the measures are, what to choose, if that's helpful for if teachers have questions on their choices.
I have a question, and I'm not quite sure specifically what it's referring to, but if we did not use Team last year, do we still do this, or would we wait until next year? So I'm assuming uploading achievement data.
Everybody, regardless of your evaluation observation model, everybody has to have achievement and growth. And we also need your contacts. But if you're just if you're using an alternative observation model, you still need to have achievement and growth score selections in there, please.
And just
Thank
a
you.
reminder,
That answered my question, just so you know. I just wanted to make sure. I'm coming from a totally different state, so I just want to make sure. So
Please feel free, yes, and reach out anytime you have questions, please.
thank you.
And just so everybody remembers, this recording and the slide deck will be posted on the team website under monthly office hours. So you can access it there every month, a few days after we're finished with our meeting. I believe we answered those. People who are staffed twice are having issues. What is a tassel configurator?
That is the Tennessee Academy for School Leaders. And it's very similar to PDP points that you choose to renew your license, but excuse me, there are some tassel mandated positions. A principal is a tassel mandated position, and they have to get tassel credit. in order to renew their license. And that's, so you have to have somebody in your district that can configure those, or charter.
Okay, and
And,
ACT.
and I'll just add, Amy, to that tassel question. The configurator doesn't have to approve principals and assistant principals tassel if they are if they attend, for example, the team certification training. They get tassel credit. The configurator is able to see our principals and assistant principals getting their tassel. Whereas if you don't have that permission, you can't see the tassel tabs.
It
Leon,
allows you to monitor and help them
That's
make
right. You
sure
just
they're doing what they need to do to renew
making
their
sure they
license or
get
advance it.
their, that's right.
Leon, I see your hand is up. Do you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. I had a question based on observation pacing. Would this
Okay.
be appropriate time to ask that?
Sure.
Okay, if we have a teacher new to our district, but that was a teacher in Tennessee last year, that should generate an LOE. As far as pacing, like right now, when I look on Compass, it's showing that they would get the maximum number of observations. So when the LOEs are released, will that automatically adjust for those teachers that were Tennessee teachers last year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
That's
we
what-
could, to build out our spreadsheet or whatever for pacing, we could go ahead and kind of assume if they were a professional, have the professional license, if we, we might place them in whatever category we think they should be, or based on our projections.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
good.
just adjust from there.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Okay. ACT growth is not currently an option for teachers to select. Do you anticipate that ACT growth will be added as an option in the future? For instance, grade 4 science teachers don't have individual growth scores for 22-23.
Right. I like 3rd and 4th grade science and social studies. It's not 3rd and 4th grade. 3rd grade didn't do it. 4th grade, 5th and the elementary science and social studies will not generate any growth. So ACT, is that what we're asking?
I think so. It says ACT growth will be an option in the future.
Not that I know of.
This question comes from me. There are two separate issues. The ACT growth, I know, was released in accountability files for TVOS. So, but I notice it's not in TNCompass as an option. I just wondered if down the road, if it would become an option.
I can look into that. I do not know. We
And
typically
the other about the grade 4 science was at the time you mentioned about individual teachers who may not generate.
right.
Grade 4 science is an example. They did not generate individual growth, so they have to rely upon what they selected.
They have to rely on their school-wide growth. That's correct. Do schools, so schools are getting an ACT growth composite?
The district does.
The district does.
I'd have to check to see if the school does, but
I'll check on that.
I just thought it interesting because we're seeing that now. Just wondered if it would down the road be added as an option for those. There are teachers who teach ACT prep classes. So
I
that
don't
would
think
align
I
well.
will check into that. I don't know that it would be an option as an individual growth score, but I will look into that.
Thank you.
When do we use measures labeled PK through 12?
TVAS measures, I'm assuming.
Chantel, are you talking about TVOS?
Okay, yes. In the selections, we see PK to 12, and it probably is TVOS, but I have some older teachers who only want to choose PK through 12. I try to push them towards 4 through 8, or 9 through 12, but they are set on using PK through 12.
That's going to be a school-wide score. If it says PK through 12, it's going to be a school-wide score. So it would
Okay.
be any grades that are in your building that generate TVAS would be in that. Trying to see
Okay.
where we. Okay.
And Chantel, you had asked about classroom level measures for a teacher to choose a 6th period class.
Yeah, so when you say a classroom measure, does that specifically mean that a teacher can choose, say, their 6th period as opposed to doing their grade level or a school level? When they say classroom, do they literally mean one group of students?
No, when I say
Small group.
classroom, I mean all of the kids that you teach every day.
All of them. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can't
That
pick and
makes sense.
choose which group you want. It's everybody.
Okay. Yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
Uh-huh. And I think
Should-
maybe where I see pre-K 8 measures on the achievement measure worksheet. And that would be, they could choose any grade level that is available for that measure at that grade.
Yeah, Miss Beals, I was looking to Amy at that right now. There is not a pre-K 12 growth measure. On the achievement measures where it says pre-K 8, that means if you are a pre-K, K1, 2, it's not a pre-K through 8 score. It's if you're one of those grades from pre-K to 8, you can pick one of those achievement measures that are under there. So if you don't teach pre-K, you don't get the pre-K achievement score. If you teach 3rd grade, you get the 3rd grade. Does that make sense? So you say teachers are wanting to pick a pre-K 12. There's not one of those, but they wouldn't be able to pick a pre-K through 8th grade average score. It's which one of those grades do they teach? Does that make sense?
Okay. So it's based solely on what the teacher teaches.
Absolutely. Achievement should be
Okay.
tied directly to what they teach. And a
Okay.
pre-K
Yes, ma'am.
through 8th grade teacher can pick one of
Make their
those
choice.
measures that are on page 5 of the achievement worksheet.
Yes. Okay. I
Is that-
understand. Thank you so
Yes, ma'am.
much.
You're very
Yes,
welcome.
that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Should 22-23 portfolio scores be reflected in TNCompass for respective teachers yet?
Yes, and I
22,
answered
23,
that.
yes.
Yes. They were actually in there in the 1st of July. When you go to that educator evaluation scores by educator, you can see the whole list. It's one of the last columns at the end, your portfolio scores. If you are the portfolio lead, you can see it in the platform. And if you are having trouble, you can email me offline and I can show you where that is.
We had somebody come in a little bit later and wanted to know expected LOE generation date.
As soon as possible. Now we expect to have those generated late September, early October. I don't have a specific date, and there are a lot of moving parts to doing that. So barring any unforeseen complication, we should have them late September, probably more like early October.
Clint, I see your hand is raised. Did you have a question?
I've got a couple of questions. So one is, can you ever consider, there's the import template for the achievement measures, which has been a godsend for the past few years, but there's no analogous one for our feeder customs on the growth. So we're hand entering close to 400 entries. Is there any talk about changing the architecture in TNCompass to accommodate the import of feeder and custom growth scores?
You should be able to use the evaluation component scores. I mean, I'm trying to look.
Yes.
Isn't that the right one? Am I on the
Yeah,
right one?
you can do the import wizard, Clint, for your feeder options. It's only going to be grayed out for the people who don't have that, but if they have the choice, feeder or custom as their school-wide growth measure, you should be able to put that in through your import wizard.
Okay, and then the other one is building on this pre-K 12 problem. So it's when I'm looking at the import template in TNCompass, when you look at all available measures, the TVOS measures say pre-K through 12, and people are wondering if those portfolio or the universal screener stuff is flowing into it. I'm telling you, there's no way to combine those two
no.
measures.
That is correct. Yeah.
But-
Okay.
but-
Thank you.
But last year there was pre-K 12, 4-8, which is the TCAP, 412, which was the TCAP EOC, and pre-K through 12. So it seemed redundant, and that was, we didn't even throw the pre-K 12 out there so that people would understand that it was just the 412 option. So I just wanted to make sure that is really the case.
That is
Yes,
the
if,
case.
if you had a school, for example, we might have a school that's a pre-K through 5th grade school. So that school might have a pre-K teacher for her achievement might pick one of those school-wide achievement scores. Does that make sense? But
Yeah,
a
kind of.
pre-K teacher,
But everywhere
But
else,
they're-
it's like these are the grade levels that are involved in the computation of the composite.
Gotcha.
So I think that's why, because I see 412 and I know it's TCAP EOC. I see 4.8, I know it's TCAP. When I see pre-K 12, that's where people are thinking, okay, that's TCAP plus portfolio or universal screener or something like that. So I think that's where a lot of the confusion's coming and why
see
the
what
one
you're talking
exists and the other, right?
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So that's, and what Tracy was saying is that is pre-K 12. It's any TVAS score that is generated in that building. So you could have early grades, you could have 4.8, and you could have EOC within that building. And then,
Yeah.
so that would be the school level composite. And then the other three would be those breakout composites. But I see what you're saying. I will.
And
I
those
understand where
would
that
only
causes
be
confusion.
achievement. That would just be achievement. I'm looking at the growth measures,
growth.
Amy, and there is no pre-K anywhere on the growth, school-wide growth.
It's on the import. Is it on the import? Is that where you're saying it?
Miss
Yeah.
Amy, this is Michelle Goad. It's also under like the drop down, if under achievement, if you switch to TVAS, that's an option.
Okay.
So it is under, it's under achievement, but it's under TVAS under achievement.
Yeah. Okay. I know where it is. Thank you. I know where you're talking about now. Thank you. We'll look at that.
Someone has 3 non-tested educators that are in multiple schools that did not generate a growth score. How do we get their scores in?
Is there, so if their selection is an LEA-wide score, I'm working on getting those in TNCompass. I'm working with TNCompass to get those to load. If they're staffed in multiple schools, you can go into their educator record and choose the master school, which would be the school where they spend the majority of their time. And then if you do that, it will apply that master school, and those are the scores that they'll receive. So it may be appropriate that they get an LEA score, or you may prefer them to have scores from just one school. That's a district decision there. But the LEA scores will get in there.
If teachers are missing TVAS scores in their achievement measure score, those are still populating. We don't need to do anything.
Please email if you're missing those. Please email TNCompass and just give me an example of one teacher that and what they're missing, and so we can look at that. They should be the TVAS, if they chose a TVAS score for an achievement measure, it should be populating if that school has that measure. But if it's not, please just send an example of a license number so we can look into that.
Since CTE growth measures may not be available until November, is it permissible for those who chose a CTE growth measure to select another growth measure for 22-23?
Be a district decision.
It is my understanding that the graduation rate measure is a lagging indicator. So should we already know that measure from a previous year?
I'm not sure where accountability, if you're talking about the accountability measure, I'm not sure. I know there was a appeals window for that. I do not know if those have been finalized and released. You can look on your accountability application and see that, but I don't know for certain if those have been finalized.
Also, LOE calculation uses the single year individual growth in this calculation, correct?
Teachers, if they have more than one individual growth score, so if they have a multi-year without 2021 and a single year, they'll see it's we've done this the past few years. You'll be able to click on that little I in that LOE box, and you'll be able to see 3 different calculations, and whichever score is higher is the one that will be used for their LOE. So yes, if their single year is higher than the other 2, that one will be used. If the multi-year 3-year is higher, then that's the one that will be used. Does that make sense to you?
For school-wide growth, do we input those or does it pull automatically?
Pulls automatically.
Theirs currently is not pulling.
Okay, if you can, if you are a charter school, those will be there soon.
Also, I noticed yesterday there were some schools who picked school-wide feeder, and they don't, it may, if it's a high schools most likely don't have a feeder. So it may just be that you picked the wrong growth measure, and that's why it didn't populate. So you also might want to just look at your measure to make sure it's a measure that does calculate. Another example would be that grade 3 early grades. If your second grade did not give the assessment and you have teachers with grade 3 early grades, school-wide growth, it's not going to generate because it won't generate if the second grade didn't take. So you might want to look at the measure and make sure that you didn't pick a measure that didn't generate a score.
Clint, you have your hand raised. Do you have another question?
I've got one achievement measure that is not loading. That is a TVOS measure school-wide. It's a school-wide TCAP/EOC composite 412. I can give you some license numbers if that would help, but
Would you mind emailing those to me?
can do.
Thank you.
What email do you want us to send these specific teacher issues to?
You can either send them to Team Questions or you can send them directly to me.
Thank you.
I put the email in the chat. Judy has a specific question and wants to know if she can talk afterwards.
Sure, just hang on. That all? Okay, if there are no more questions, please reach out if you have questions. We are here to support you and are glad to do it. Have a great afternoon.
You want to go ahead and stop your recording, Amy?